two demonic forces of evil who have a burdening presence throughout the narrative by haunting the main character with their own weakness. Sukuna using his monstrous strength as the king of curses to demoralize Yuji while he hurts the people he cares about in his own body. And Akuma attempting to push Ryu into succumbing to the darkness of the Satsui No Hado, the more murderous side of their shared fighting style, taunting him by saying unless he can harness and use it to its fullest extent, he could never match him. I'm only going to be using content from the mainline Street Fighter games alongside supplementary material related to those games, such as manuals or databooks, but I will not be using any comics, crossovers, or any of Akuma's feats from Tekken 7. While Akuma is canon to Tekken, there's no real definitive proof that Tekken 7 Akuma is canon to the Street Fighter story, sort of like two different timelines and characters. I'll also be using the Sukuna we have in chapter 231 or in the middle of his fight with Gojo as of time of recording, so potential manga spoilers ahead if you haven't caught up. You've been warned. I will also not be equating energy, as I never really do in any of my videos, and even within the realm of Jujutsu Kaisen, characters like Maki or Toji take advantage of their lack of cursed energy for their own benefit, using it as a legitimate strategy against sorcerers and cursed spirits alike, with Toji's assassination style in particular being the Invisible Man, completely undetectable until it's already too late, even to someone with the 6 eyes. But with all that out of the way, let's start out the discussion by dissecting Akuma. Though Street Fighter has no shortage of villains in classics like Sagat and Bison, or even new faces like JP, I'm sure both diehard members of the FGC spending hundreds of dollars on arcade sticks, as well as casuals who buy the game on a whim, would both admit that very few amongst them stand out like Akuma, destroyer of the heavens. And his reputation precedes him, getting himself banned in tournaments for games of his debut appearance, alongside the selecting of him instantly bringing with it this unshakable stigma of cheating over the course of his 25 plus years worth of appearances.
Alright, time to play some Super Turbo with a good buddy of mine. What are you doing? You play Fei Long.
But how does this translate to his strength? Already overpowering most other combatants by being a rival to, if not greater than Ryu, someone that others consider to be the peak of the verse, Akuma has plenty of lines of scaling we could go down, weakest of which being Adon destroying a building-sized structure in the back of Sagat's stage during his ending in Street Fighter Alpha 2, with Sagat repeatedly dominating Adon fairly casually, one-shotting him in one instance and putting him out of commission entirely for a year in another. Other characters that Sagat outclasses such as Jurihan destroying city block-sized amusement parks by merely standing around using her Feng Shui engine, and Sagat compares pretty prominently to Ryu. While power like this might seem noteworthy on the surface, delving into the true capabilities of someone like Akuma, even in his base form, may seem otherworldly in comparison, demolishing M. Bison in seconds with his Raging Demon, also stating that Ryu, who can similarly defeat Bison, is no equal to him, even at his full potential. Akuma has somewhat sparingly demonstrated the utterly unparalleled extent of his true strength, being able to completely one-shot entire islands on 2 separate occasions in just his base form, alongside having calcs that place his Sekiya Kuretsuha at 783 gigatons worth of TNT, or similarly what's considered enough to destroy large islands, with Akuma himself even going as far as to refer to this as mere child's play. Akuma being this strong is consistent considering how highly he scales above everyone else, Ryu's only hope at beating him being the Satsui No Hado, the same power that can one-shot the Bison that demolished Juri. But even then, this is only if Ryu can actually defeat Akuma with the Satsui No Hado, as it's still questionable if he stands a chance. With this information, Akuma sits in the Mountain to Island ranges of attack potency pretty comfortably, as even if you somehow have contentions with his island level feats, he should at the very least be capable of destroying the mountains visible on the islands, and he achieves this with a single punch in his base form. To go over Akuma's speed, we have characters far below him like Juri and Cammy reacting to bullets, or Cody's punching speed being comparable to them. This usually caps out at about sub or supersonic speeds, but these characters are significantly below him, and more prominent fighters like Sagat can cross over 100-meter distances faster than the human eye can perceive. This alongside statements like Chun-Li's Hyakuretsu Kyaku being known as lightning kicks, or being stated to strike like lightning, and other characters being shown to move at similar speeds to satellite beams that reach the Earth's orbit in mere seconds, make the higher-ups in Street Fighter's cast lightning timers or places them in the ranges of massively hypersonic. Akuma himself has shown massively hypersonic speeds, being able to reach Earth's orbit with his Sekia Kuretsuha in just 6 or so seconds. If you'd like, you could try to advocate for Akuma reaching even higher to relativistic or light speeds by arguing that Bison should be able to react to Guile and Charlie's sonic boom, described to be a blade of light, as he completely dominates Charlie in Alpha 1 and 2, or even tanking his suicide explosion in Street Fighter V. With Akuma being able to blitz this Bison and one-shot him with his Raging Demon. Oro is also stated to shoot bullets of light, and Akuma should also be able to react to these as well, as he is somewhat comparable to him, but these light bullets are also stated to be made of Ki, and the same should be true for Guile and Charlie's sonic boom, so there's no real way to prove or assert that these attacks share the properties of actual light, making Akuma's lightspeed scaling a little more subjective or up to interpretation, and therefore I will be proceeding with the conclusion that Akuma is massively hypersonic. Moving on to Sukuna. Throughout Jujutsu Kaisen, very few have remotely shown any capability to compare with his power, with even 3 sorcerers now considered the new pinnacle of Jujutsu High's fighting force being somewhat apprehensive about fighting him, and even if hypothetically he would be somewhat fatigued after his current fight with Gojo, their chances at victory remain highly questionable. Similarly to Akuma in Street Fighter, Sukuna more or less scales over the entirety of the verse, with Gojo currently being the only one who could hope to best him at his full power, despite those centuries after his time still hoping to challenge him all these years later. This would mean that anything displayed by the substantially weaker characters should be easily replicable by the likes of Gojo and Sukuna, like Jogo's Maxima Meteor capable of destroying a portion of Shibuya and going as far to create earthquakes throughout it. But even in just a few short chapters later and during his fight with Mahoraga, Sukuna makes this meteor seem like nothing in comparison with his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. Sukuna has 2 variations of slashing attacks, one being Cleave, which cuts through anything with cursed energy and can adjust its properties to the specifications of its target, alongside Dismantle, which bypasses the need for cursed energy entirely to cut that which may appear as inanimate objects lacking cursed energy. Malevolent Shrine takes these 2 attacks and greatly increases their range by up to nearly 200 meters, which allows Sukuna to completely destroy a good portion of Shibuya before using a fire arrow to vaporize Mahoraga. These 2 feats alongside Jogo's Maximum Meteor are usually calced at the force required to destroy most towns, and this is pretty consistent with other impressive Jujutsu practitioners like Sukuna is himself, causing considerable damage to the city surrounding both he and Gojo by just beginning their fight, and before either of them have gained any serious bruises or battle damage. The town or city ranges for Sukuna are pretty safe, but there are a couple ways to get Sukuna just a bit stronger. The first of which is by using Dagon and Jogo's domain expansions, domains being created from the cursed energy of their users, with Jogo's domain bringing forth a mountain, and Dagon's domain spawning something that resembles a tropical island. Though we can't really prove that this island is exactly to the scale of a real one, there are several calculations that place not only Jogo's domain, but Dagon's as well at mountain levels of force, which isn't too far-fetched considering that domains are the pinnacle of what Jujutsu sorcery could hope to achieve. And Jogo is already destroying Shibuya with just his Maxima Meteor. The second, and more so unlikely in my opinion, is Yuki's black hole stated to be able to destroy the world by Kenjaku after their fight, alongside the infamous volume cover statement stating that Sukuna could destroy the world as we know it. Looking at the raw stance for this statement from Kenjaku, it uses the kanji for sekai, which can be translated to mean either world, society, or universe. I think that society makes the most sense in this context, especially when you look at the connotation of other statements throughout the series, with people using phrases like the Jujutsu world or the Jujutsu society interchangeably, or statements like Gojo being able to power an entire society or nation, which Kenjaku doesn't contest. This line of reasoning could also be applied to the Sukuna volume cover statement, since it says the world as we know it, with the as we know it portion likening it to a society one would be familiar with, or the aforementioned Jujutsu world or Jujutsu society. That being said, I think the town to city tiers are the most consistent ranges for Jujutsu Kaisen's attack potency, but for the sake of charitability, I will be granting Sukuna mountain level attack potency through Jogo and Dagon's domains. If you don't agree with this, that's fine. Like I said, I'm purely doing this out of charitability, and this is more so debatable in comparison to the more blatant city-to-town feats. Now on to Sukuna's speed. This has always been a weird part of doing Jujutsu Kaisen crossverse, but similarly to Street Fighter, There are also several bullet timing feats from characters like Geto reacting to Toji's gun, and Maki grabbing the one her sister fires at her. But this is when she's considerably weaker in the Goodwill event arc, and characters like Sukuna or even Geto who can blitz Maki should be much faster. These bullet timing feats would land these characters around subsonic, but Maki should exceed these tiers of speed in her fight with Naoya, where his top speeds are already stated to surpass subsonic, and then achieving Mach 3 speed when he returns to haunt Maki as a curse. This would firmly place them at supersonic speeds, but there is no way to legitimately get them higher other than Kashima's lightning. But even then, no one really reacts to it, and even Hakari barely manages to move out of the way for it to hit his arm instead of his face. You also can't really prove Kashima's lightning moves as fast as real lightning either, making it essentially impossible to get any real scaling out of it. Though I am not trying to assert, however, that Sukuna is only as fast as Maki, because that's clearly not true. There's just nothing to suggest or any way to quantify that he would be an entire tier of speed above her into the ranges of hypersonic, so unfortunately Sukuna will have to cap at the higher ends of supersonic speeds. To finally conclude on who would claim victory if the Master of the Fist and the King of Curses were to exchange blows, though I granted Sukuna mountain level attack potency in order for him to somewhat rival Akuma, he's still horrifically slower by a considerable margin, so much so that Sukuna may never be able to touch or even perceive Akuma. But to briefly go over how their abilities would interact, Cleave obviously isn't working since Akuma has no cursed energy, therefore Sukuna may try to use Dismantle in order to attack him, but this probably won't be enough to put him down entirely, since they are only barely relative and Sukuna has to be able to land Dismantle in the first place with such a massive gap in their speed. Realizing that he has no conventional way to attack Akuma with his own tools, he may resort to using Megami's 10 Shadows technique, and aside from the Great Serpent potentially being able to restrain Akuma if it could catch him first, the rest of the Shikigami honestly won't be that useful aside from the obvious elephant in the room, Mahoraga. With the ability to adapt to any and all that stands in its path, Mahoraga may indeed be able to adapt and react to Akuma's speed or the difference in their stats, but this is assuming Akuma doesn't instantly vaporize or destroy him the same way Sukuna does in even a weaker form, 15 finger, than the one fighting Akuma here, which has eaten 19 fingers but should probably be at the strength of 20 considering that he ate his mummified head to make up for the lack of his 20th. If this 15 finger Sukuna can just obliterate Mahoraga, there's no reason why Akuma shouldn't be able to do the same. As his last ditch effort, Sukuna may resort to using his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. It's debatable as to how much stronger both Cleave and Dismantle become within Sukuna's domain, or if they do at all, but what's important here is that the domain expansions within Jujutsu Kaisen come with guaranteed hits upon activation. Therefore, Malevolent Shrine will allow a guaranteed hit with Dismantle on Akuma. But again, this more than likely won't be enough to put him out of commission or potentially even slow him down at all, considering the difference in their attack potency and durability. All in all, Akuma is entirely too fast and too durable for any of Sukuna's or even Megami's tools within his new body to ever cause fatal damage to him. I personally see this fight ending with a Speed Blitz and Raging Demon, which for those of you who don't know, attack the target's soul with the weight of their own past sins and misdeeds for immediate infernal punishment, and I don't think I have to explain why this would be a problem for Sukuna. Another interesting win con for Akuma would be to remove or exorcise Sukuna from Megami's body, as we see him do to Kage with his Houten Segenkiki, sending him back to Ryu, his former host. This isn't exactly too far-fetched to say either, considering characters like Bison have shown soul manipulation as well, removing every bit of good that could be found within his soul and creating Rose in the process. If Sukuna does fall victim to the spiritual battlefield removal and there is no Yuji to return to, that could very well spell the end for the King of Curses then and there, especially with most of his win cons being centered around the hypothetical of him actually being able to keep with Akuma at all, or even land a blow on him, despite the gap of up to 20 times in their speed and despite some of Akuma's other tools that I haven't really mentioned in this video, like intangibility with his Demon Step. A match between the King of Curses and the Master of the Fist will more than likely end with the former truly earning his moniker of the Disgraced One, lashing out in anger over his inability to hit or perceive his opponent, maybe even raising his salt meters as if the two were side by side on the sticks. Jokes aside, these two are great villains with some interesting parallels and shared aesthetics, and if you enjoyed this video, like it to support both the channel as well as myself, and tell me that this is the type of content you want to see. I plan to make more fighting game content, both versus battle and non-versus battle related in the future, like my upcoming video on the hitbox, and I may do the same for Jujutsu Kaisen as well. so subscribe for free to be notified of any future videos and projects. Feel free to let me know in the comments if I missed anything, if you enjoyed watching Street Fighter Top 6 at Evolution this year, or who you think will inevitably take this fight between Gojo and Sukuna. Thank you all for watching, and have a blessed day.
Let it roll off your back and let it slip off your tongue before you lose your loving and it's right back where you started from. Slip off your tongue, loving and it's right back to start and it. Let it roll back and slip off your tongue.
うぬがしと同じ道を行くか弱き者の道地獄への道をな